Hello, everyone, and welcome to the closing panel of this MENA Executive Forum held in partnership with Coursera for Campus. My name's Ashton Wemborn, and I'm the Special Projects Deputy Editor at THE. And during this session, we will discuss closing the skills gap in the MENA region, the path to more employable graduates with digital learning. We're joined today by a panel of experts and decision makers from MENA's higher education sector. So I would like to introduce Mehdi Almudin, Head of Digital Resources and Professor of English at École Centrale Casablanca, and Samar Farah, Skills Transformation Consultant at Coursera. Thank you to our panel for speaking with us today. Countries in the MENA region are future-proofing their workforces by focusing on skills training and graduate prospects. By making use of digital learning tools, higher education institutions are delivering quality teaching that prioritizes employability, sustainability, and entrepreneurship. So I'd like to begin today's discussion by asking about the current challenges that hinder student employability in the MENA region. Samar, could you tell us a little bit about the trends that you're seeing in terms of challenges and what that might mean for student employability moving forward?
Sure, thank you, and thanks for having me. We're seeing a number of, I'd say, concerning trends when it comes to young people in the Arab world and their ability to access employment or launch their own businesses or transition successfully into the workplace. There's a few trends that I would like to highlight and statistics that I think are a reflection of the complexities and the challenges that we're facing in the region. The first one is that we're seeing the quality of education fall behind across the whole region. And this applies not just to higher education, but the whole education system. And it is important to look at it as a system because ultimately, everything is connected and affected. So we're seeing Arab countries fall behind in international assessments at the K-12 level. For example, TIMSS and PISA results. In the latest TIMSS results, 2019, 8 out of the 11 lowest ranked countries were Arab countries. That is also then reflected in data that we got from the World Bank that says that students in the Arab world are on average up to 3 years behind in their schooling upon graduation. That obviously then is affected in the higher education system where students go in and they need a lot of support to really even get to the level where they should have been upon entry. The second one that I think is important to identify is around the unemployment of young Arabs. And everyone knows that we have the highest unemployment rates for youth in the whole world. But I think what is even more important to recognize is that we have the highest unemployment rates for the proportion of young people that have a tertiary education or a postgraduate, university degree. And that is something that is very concerning because that reflects the fact that there's a mismatch between, what students are taught in university and then what happens to them when they join the workforce. So around 40% of young people that have a university degree are out of work, training, or employment or education. And the last thing that I wanted to note is this is then reflected in their ability to find work. Young people are have been disproportionately affected by the COVID-19 pandemic because a lot of them are working in the informal sector and they are also the easiest jobs to drop, an entry-level job. So according to some OECD data, we know that 72% of young people in the Arab region are having a lot of trouble finding work at the moment. So I think all of these different data points just illustrate the urgency of addressing this issue, and I think also the opportunity around online learning to start to really ameliorate these challenges that we're facing.
That's great. Thank you, Samar. I think that gives us a really useful starting point to discuss where we go with these challenges. Before we get stuck into that, I would also like to introduce Nayef Abu Agil, who is the director of the Online Learning Centre at Al Hussein Technical University, who's just joined us. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Sorry about the delay.
Not a problem. We've started today's discussion by just looking at the trends in terms of challenges affecting student employability in the MENA region. So if we could move now to Mehdi, if you could kind of respond to some of those trends that Samar has raised there, and maybe tell us what higher education can do to tackle those challenges.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate this panel and the discussions. I've attended some of them this morning and I learned a lot. So my modest contribution will be actually to talk about what hinders employability, but just briefly, I don't want to repeat things that have already been said. And again, discuss what are the challenges that we should address today. So I think for years we tended to focus on specializations, but not the outcome. Let me give you an example. We used to focus, for example, on people studying at university who are specialized, for example, in biology or in geology. Yes, it's interesting. It's an interesting field. People would learn a lot about these fields, but then what? When once they graduate, what kind of persons you want them to be in the field? And that's one of the things that's created this huge gap, because you can be specialized in geology, but most of the time people who specialize in geology end up being geologists, but we never looked at what is the outcome. I mean, if you want to be a geologist, we should maybe sit down and think, oh, maybe you need to communicate very well. Maybe you need to study English because most of the research is carried out and published in English. Maybe you need to have some people skills and so on and so forth. And then the outcome would shape the type of studies we would offer to those students in university. That's what created the gap. We tended to focus on those specializations. Like today, there are trends that are, that are very trendy, I would say, in vogue, like cloud computing, quantum physics, quantum computing. But then what? What kind of people do you want to see in the future? What kind of future employed students? This is what, for me, created the gap. So what hinders students' employability are the skills we do not develop at school. For instance, I wouldn't say communication because we study communication, but maybe not effectively. But people skills, interpersonal skills, leadership, time management, or organization, etc. Those skills, we can address them through digital teaching innovations. And here I can give you again examples. As a teacher, I always give examples. I don't want to talk about theory. Because you can come and step into a classroom and say, today I'm going to teach management. It's easy to say I'm going to teach management. But what kind of management? What are you going to teach your students? You have to be very, very specific. You want to teach them leadership? It's so vague. It's a broad topic. But what kind of leadership are you talking about? So maybe you should create scenarios, case studies, and it will take you maybe 4, 5, 6 weeks to discuss these scenarios, to put students into scenarios where they would think about leadership, about working in a team, etc. So those things, they can be taught online, because online you can create scenarios, case studies, you can give them readings, or videos to watch, give them things, you can assign things to do at home. You can give them time to think and to reflect upon these things, which you do not have in higher education institutes. So we can cater for these needs online, because first it's time consuming, because online is very specific. So this is how I see it from my perspective.
Thank you. I think that the trends that Samar outlined kind of split into quality issues, which I think you've addressed there, Mehdi, and then the employment problems, so young people being disproportionately affected by high unemployment. So Nayef, perhaps you could speak to us a little bit more about what higher education institutions and service providers like Coursera can do to address that employability issue.
Yes, sure. Thank you. It's the skills gap is a big problem all over, the world, but in the Arab region, it's probably more of a problem than anywhere else. One reason is really the students are not skilled, and the other one is also the market itself. So let's focus on the students and the role of the universities. I think the students, when they come to the university, big problem they come with is they come from an environment where learning was based on memorization, or what we call rote learning. So that's one of the major problems that institutions have to deal with when they come. What kind of students you have, what kind of audience, and those students, they vary. Some of them come from when we at Al Hussein Technical University, we see differences. Some of them, they come from private schools, for example, and they are way better than the ones who come from, let's say the public schools. So the public schools are not, the students come lacking very much on all the non-technical skills that we really want or need. So at Al Hussein Technical University, the model was different. The model has two distinct features. It's a young university, probably 4 years old. And one of the things is it's a project-based university. So that was one of the key things to get those students to start, learning the hands-on skills that they need, basically. And then when you work on a project-based, definitely if you're working in a team, then, depending on the project, but they go through so many projects in every course, almost, they have a project that's actually was built in a real scenario. And then as they graduate and they go through, like, let's assume 10, 20, 30 projects, that makes a big difference for the students. In addition to the hands-on learning, you cover that, and then you come to the next issue, which is you build the other skills like communication skills, like teamwork, creativity will be also another one that you need to build. So many of the essential skills. Now, the other thing that at Al Hussein Technical University we did is we did the apprenticeship. The apprenticeship is basically practical training that the students do for 9 months, for 8 months, rather than usually in public universities or other universities in Jordan, it's done for 3 months. So in our case, we do it for 8 months for the bachelor's. And that makes a big difference now. And then the training itself is very well basically designed with real outcomes that has to be attained. It's not just go, do this training and you're done after that, and you're in the hands of the where you go to. And most of the time, you go, then because they're busy, they will put you probably through whatever makes you the easy path. So, but now in this case, there's a follow-up and all of that. So the apprenticeship with a project-based, and then the other thing that what we started doing at Al Hussein, which is the Coursera, which started with the COVID-19. So COVID-19 actually was a hit in one way to education, because people and everybody was forced to jump into what's called online learning, which is not between quote unquote, it was not online learning. It was really traditional learning, but was done through, in the best case scenario, was done through a Zoom or, or Teams or other capability. So now, but with us, what we did is when we started with Zoom, it gave a very quick alternative for the students to start, probably looking at some of the courses that are available. We also thought it was a very good platform to introduce our students to, to things that are coming from, everywhere in the world, from very well respected universities and also corporations and from everywhere. So when they get there, they would see things that we wouldn't be able ourselves to expose them to, as an institution. And our perspective is, you cannot be everything. You cannot be the best at everything. If you can use other capabilities and help your students to build the skills that they need, that would be for us as a good way, to help our students. So that was, and then, so the students in this case, they would go, we encourage them, to go get some certificates, because these certificates, they help the students, when they get few certificates, we see the difference in the students, when they go to the marketplace, they would have now, they are better equipped than other, students who come from other universities, because they have actually now got exposed to Coursera. They are getting, kind of certificates from different, either from corporations like Google, IBM, or from Amazon, or from another good from another university. Whatever is available there on Coursera is usually, regardless of the university, is really can be good content that the students can benefit from. So sometimes we give them the freedom, total freedom, go look, do whatever you want, to browse even, take even a few, from each. You can go use Coursera. We give them a license to browse and do things. And sometimes we require it to be part of the course. And sometimes we tell them, we could actually take these courses and then we allow you to transfer it for credits. But we make sure that, the only thing, we make sure that they got the assessment right. So we probably have in this case, we have our professors, sit with them and probably either do a quick assessment or make them make a presentation or something, so that we make sure that they did the assessment. So this is our approach, that we thought is makes a difference in building or in bridging the skills gap in the marketplace.
Yes, and I think that project-based approach that you've spoken about is a really important aspect of closing that skills gap, and especially creating those employable graduates. And I think that what everything that we've spoken about so far comes back to is the kind of real world skills that, going back to Mehdi, your example of the geology student, you can know everything about that field, but it doesn't necessarily make you employable in a wider sense. So I think, Samar, in terms of those project-based learning approaches and also the internships that Naif mentioned, it seems like collaboration with industry, or certainly kind of those real-world experiences, are where students can perhaps make the most gains. So do you see a real value in that kind of industry collaboration?
Yeah, I have to say I agree with both of the comments of both panelists, and I think those are exactly the kinds of things that we would like to see more universities doing. And in the engagements that we typically have, that's typically the part that's most difficult for universities to approach. They've had their hands full for the past year and a half, really trying to adjust to this new reality, and faculty are really busy trying to get a handle on teaching in an online or a blended setting. So staying on top of what industry is doing, building those strong connections, offering apprenticeships and internships at a time like this is obviously very challenging, but there are a number of different ways to do it. And that's where online learning and partnerships with Coursera or other such providers can be really helpful, because we have those links. So as Dr. Naif mentioned, we have a lot of professional certificates available, and we do see that as being something that is in a lot of demand, by universities, by students, and even by alumni, I would say, because that really helps to signal to a potential employer that, yes, I know what are the skills that you're teaching and using, on a daily basis in the workplace. They get to practice using some of these software or tools that are then, are very relevant on a daily basis, and they are much more competitive when they start to look for those jobs. The other piece that I think is an important one, and that we've seen a huge interest in, are what we call our guided projects, and that again was discussed. That can be incorporated in a number of different ways. It can be through the guided projects we have on Coursera, but there are also ways to incorporate kind of real world challenges or scenarios in the day-to-day teaching. And that application of, the theory is really what allows, students to develop those skills and to really master a specific topic. And we've seen that in our research, that when you incorporate a guided project into a course or whatever you are teaching, students retain that knowledge or develop their skills 30% more than otherwise. So the ability to develop those skills are, that they will be using in the workplace is really important, and something we find universities to be really interested in. So those are just some ways that we find can start to build better bridges, I guess, with what comes next, and also give students an idea of what life will look like, because most young people go into university and have some impression of what a specific role or a job would look like, but until they have some experiences, they really don't know what that is, and perhaps they don't like it. And so this gives them a little bit more flexibility to try it out, to adjust and maybe change if they need to, before they join the workplace and then have to make those decisions at a much later stage, which can be disruptive for them.
Thank you, Samar. Mehdi, from an institutional point of view, are those industry collaborations something that you're focusing more on at the moment? And are the digital tools that have become more commonplace and kind of widely adopted since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, do you think those tools are helping you to foster those sorts of partnerships for your students?
Yes, definitely. They are indirectly helping us for projects-based learning. Because one of the things that Dr. Naif mentioned is autonomy. Our students are similar to the students he mentioned. Most of them are gullible because they studied in an environment where they receive information, they swallow it, and then they have less critical thinking. They lack actually critical thinking. When they come to school, and it's a very shocking experience for them, because it's not the classical teaching where the teacher is giving you all the information you want, but it's actually another environment where we explain things, we guide you, and we show you the path, the learning path. So you have to look for information. What is Coursera doing for us is enlarging the scope of the learners, because since we foster autonomy, we can't teach everything. So Coursera is there for them to help them learn about other things that we couldn't teach in class and that we're not willing to teach in class. And let me link that with the project-based learning. For example, our first year engineering students at Central, they have what we call learning by doing projects, which means we have partnership. We partner with a lot of industries, and we bring a theme which is challenging for one industry that should be discussed and analyzed by students. Last year we did. We partnered with agricultural firms, and the issue was irrigation problems. And we asked students to delve into that problem, try to understand it, do some research on that issue, and then work in groups. So they work in teams and come up with a prototype that they should sort of invent. that would solve the problem of irrigation. We had students who invented very small robots, students who invented irrigation systems, a lot of prototypes. But to do that, I don't think we teachers, we could help a lot. We referred them to Coursera, we referred them to books, to trainings. We referred them to go to, we asked them to go to see some managers in some companies, do interviews, discuss, conduct observation, etc. And for example, if we take one team who wanted, for example, to invent or create a robot, so they need to learn about electricity, electronics, they need to learn about a lot of technical things that the school cannot necessarily provide. And here comes lies the importance of Coursera. They can go and look for the skill that they need, and then they can foster, enhance, improve, maybe discover that skill for the first time and work on it. This may be an example that's highly technical, but there are other skills that we tend to forget, like PowerPoint. I've never seen any teacher in my life come into class and saying, today I'm going to dedicate 2 hours on teaching you how to give a presentation using PowerPoint. However, if you check the catalog of Coursera, you find, I don't know, maybe 4 hours course on PowerPoint. And maybe some people would find it silly, but it's very important. You need to know how to use PowerPoint. So this is how we used Coursera in partnership with those hands-on skills for project-based learning.
Thank you. It seems like these skills that often get termed as soft skills are really where the biggest gap might lie. And actually by soft skills, that's not to diminish something that's really important, that critical thinking that has come up today, the ability to work effectively in a team. But as the world of work changes, those kinds of soft skills that employers want will also change. So Nayef, if you could tell us, we've got about just a couple minutes left in today's session, but how do you see that institutions can identify the skills that students need and deliver them effectively?
Yes, usually those soft skills are, accreditation agencies who communicate with the employers, and they get the input from employers, like, whether Pearson or like ABET for the technical, majors. You will find like you will have the outcomes, sometimes almost 50% or more are soft skills, and the hard technical skills are about 50%. So they are very important, and and most employers, they agree on them, and they tell you these are what we need. And we have people come to us and they don't know how to communicate with others, for example, or how to and now after COVID, this is where it becomes, as you mentioned, that this is there's a change now, basically, as we go into the new era of, one of it because of COVID, and one of it because of the new economy that has developed because of the internet and and the social media and all of that, which means that you need students now who can communicate with others and to collaborate, not just face to face, but also online. They have to adapt to how to work with others across the globe, so somebody might be in India, some in China, some in Europe, US, Middle East, whatever. So the team might be scattered, and you need to know how to communicate with those. So other part of the soft skills, now you need language skills too. So you need their English language skills has to be, improved, so that they can make good communications. So that with all the team members that are coming on board. So that's Now with the COVID, that's one thing. This is out of COVID, because many people went to work from home. Now you will see more and more, some of the work will be done in teams over the internet. So even though people will go back to work, but I don't think it's going to be 100%. So many actually corporations and institutions find that it's for better productivity. You want to give the employees the chance to work from home too. To give them more, flexibility, freedom, and the productivity usually goes up, doesn't go down. Now, the other thing is with the new economy and the changes that happened over the last probably 10 to 15 years, we see that now that whatever the students learn becomes actually outdated or becomes actually old within 4 or 5 years. So now lifelong learning becomes critical. So that's a new skill that you need to give it to students. And I think that's where Coursera, I think, was very, very, very kind of powerful, because now when you get the students to learn how to go to a platform, look for the skills that they need, they can do this on their own at the cheap, they don't have to pay like thousands of dollars to get to be able to, to improve their skills. And that's, I think Coursera is important for that. I think for the lifelong learning, where the students can learn how to, get what they need and how to, to identify it. And then when they go to the marketplace, you give them the skill while they are in school, but they will use it while they are in the marketplace.
Nayef, I absolutely agree with you mentioned the importance of lifelong learning, and I think that's something that moving forward will continue to gain traction in the higher education industry. Unfortunately, that does bring us to the end of today's session. I'd love to hear more from you on this, and hopefully we can speak again very soon. But for now, I'd just like to thank our panel for joining us, and also our audience. It was great to hear your insights. So thank you again, and goodbye.